announcing the commencement of the annual purge sanctioned by the U.S. government. Weapons of Class 4 and lower have been authorized for use during the purge. All other weapons are restricted. Government officials of ranking 10 have been granted immunity from the purge and shall not be harmed. Commencing at the siren, any and all crime, including murder, will be legal for 12 continuous hours. Police, fire, and emergency medical services will be unavailable until tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. when the purge concludes. Blessed be our new founding fathers and America, a nation reborn. May God be with you all.
Energy on the truck,
Good evening, everybody. It's Grizzly and Ginette.
This is your emergency broadcast system.
Coast to coast, around the world. We got an interesting show tonight. We're going to have 2 segments of the show. Ginette, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. I'm here. Busy day. How about you?
Same here. It's always busy for me. Always has been. Always will be. So
the double dipper, daddy, daddy, and the worker, the daddy, and the. I guess you're caregiver to your parents too now, right?
Well, something along those lines, or vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, so you know how it is. Good evening, everybody. We're here to talk. Go ahead, Ginette. I didn't mean to cut you off. That's how rude. Sorry.
No, I know, it's all right. I was going to say taking care of your parents is very humbling. You know, that big word. It's humbling. It makes you realize, gosh, I could be in the same position when I'm 80 or 90 if you make it that long.
Yeah, now I did a show the other night. The average expectancy of a human by God was in his years is 120. Did you realize that?
I did hear something to that effect. I'll take it. I'm good with that. Just so that I can walk and talk and not have to lean on something.
Well, I do that already, so. And that's being sober, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want y'all to think I'm over here drinking, but I'm drinking iced tea right now, so yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. Coffee.
So what's
Maxwell
our topic's going to
Health,
be tonight? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So we're going to talk about the dowsing tools, and if you set up a case, and a case can be missing people, missing objects, missing items, mysteries, that kind of thing. So we have an inspiration from a woman who wants to jump in there and help out, not with us per se, but with her community. We'll give a high five to Doris, and we're going to talk about what she's going to need if she does this kind of work with missing persons and working with police. So, of course, you're going to have to give us your input on how police receive psychics.
Sure, that won't be a problem. And Doris is online. Hello, Doris. Welcome to the show.
Yep, she's there.
Now, we did do a previous show on dowsing, but this time we're going to go a little bit further and deeper, correct?
Yep. So we're going to talk about the tools. So you want to read what you found? Do you know which magazine that was that I sent you?
No, it came from the Enlightened Mindset, exploring the world, knowledge, and understanding. So I really figured it was very interesting, and it was a good article to go by. And, it talks about how does dowsing work, It also explores the science, history, and benefits of dowsing. Now, there are some things from this article that I have found out and we'll cover here shortly. Now, the introduction starts out is like we talked about previously. Dowsing is an ancient practice that has been around for centuries. It is believed to be a form of divination used to locate objects, uncover hidden knowledge, which I didn't know that, and even predict the future, which I did not know that part of it. See how deep we're going? But how does dowsing
Deep.
actually work? Yeah, I mean, we're going deep.
Well, they're going to
So,
tell us how it works. Yeah, and then we're going to find out, from my opinion, how it works. So you go.
well, in this article that we're going to discuss and use it as an example, we'll also explore the science, the history, and the benefits of dowsing. That's what's really cool. Exploring the science behind dowsing. When it comes to understanding dowsing, it's very important to look at the science behind it. They talk about a theory. I always love theories that dowsers use their intuition and subconscious mind to pick up on subtle energies in the environment. And this can include electromagnetic fields, vibrations, or actually other forms of energy. Now, examine the physics behind dowsing to better understand how dowsing actually works. It helps to examine the physics behind it. Now, this is where I like, okay, physics behind it. Scientists actually believe that dowsers use their intuition and subconscious mind to pick up on subtle energies in the environment. These energies include electromagnetic fields, vibrations, and we talked about this earlier in the last show, other forms of energy. Now, when investigating the different types of energy using the dowsing, different types of energy can be used in dowsing. See, and I did not know this. Some dowsers use the energy of the earth, while others use the energy of the moon or stars. Other may use the energy of plants or crystals. Each type of energy has its own unique properties and effects. So, what do you use when you douse?
Well, I like the pendulum. And a lot of people are surprised when I say I work remotely. So I'm going to be working with some new people coming up. I met a new girl who does berry treasure hunting, which is nice. And I work with a few others, Larry. I give them a shout out. And I'm going to be using the work at home. So it will be the pendulum. If I was in the field, boots on the ground, I would be using the L rods. I would be using, I was wrong. I stand corrected. My favorite L rods would be the copper L rods, not the brass. There's brass too. Brass is nice. But I do like the brass pendulums. I have a gold pendulum. I have a Y rod. The only thing bad about the Y rod is when you hold it, and it's just like people use the same Y rod from a tree. That's why they were called water witchers, because they would use witch hazel from a tree to go water dowsing. But the problem is, it when you're holding it, you hold it sort of tight, and it hits you in the face if you hold it too tight. And sometimes it's a little more difficult to control. And it is it's something you have to practice on a regular basis. You can't just jump in there and say, oh, I'm going to go find water. Out of all the cases I've ever done, I've had one case not work out on locating water. On treasure hunting, I tend to be very high accuracy on finding treasure. I think that, again, you could incorporate all of the tools, the Y rod, the L rod, and the pendulum. I think a lot more people should, when they're doing ghost shows, should use a pendulum, because you can actually see the energy move the pendulum. The person's not moving it, but I was thinking about sending one to Zach Bagan and say, hey, here's a teaching pendulum, and people will actually see that the energy is pushing it left and right. Teaching pendulum is going to be 6 inches and probably 3 inches wide. So 6 inches tall by 3 inches. And I have a few of those left over from my dad. And the nice thing is if you're teaching an audience, people can actually see what's going on. So that's a start.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, now let's not forget that she is also a psychic and a medium that's worked on cases with local law enforcement, FBI, and other agencies. So I'm going to throw that out there. But exploring the different uses of dowsing today, dowsing is still widely practiced and used for a variety of purposes. It's not something that you turn on TV and see. Well, there's a little bold job out there, Hope or whatever his name is, using a dowsing rod, locate underground water sources or buried objects, lost items, or even to diagnose illness. Now, see, I didn't know that you can diagnose illness with dowsing rods.
You can. It's an energy. Yeah.
Dowsing can also be used to answer questions, gain insight into the future, and uncover hidden knowledge. You know what? I think I probably need a dazzle vazzle in that little field. But to examine the techniques used in dowsing, describing the different tools used in dowsing, dowsers often use tools such as, like she said, pendulums, rods, and maps to help them locate what they are looking for. Pendulums are suspended from a string and chain are used to detect subtidal energies or changes or subtile. Rods are usually made of metal or wood and held in the hands of the dowser. A map can be used to pinpoint specific locations. Now, don't you use a map sometimes?
I always use the map. I just did a dog case today, for example, missing dog case. And so the people were in Arizona. I'm here at home doing the remote dowsing. I used a pendulum. I used a different method today. I use in my left hand a PEN and in my right hand the pendulum. And what I do is I take the pen in a horizontal manner and I say, show me, show me, show me. If I go from north to south, the grid where I should go to locate the missing doggy. And then once I find the horizontal, that means east and west. Then I turn my pen and put it vertical, and I go from left to right. You can do either or, but I prefer a pattern. And I go from left to right, and I say, show me, show me, show me. Where's the missing doggy? Which will be the south and north connection. And it actually shows you like a cross street, like Mr. Smith Drive is connected to Heavenly Boulevard. All right. So then what you do is in the middle of that cross section, that's where the dog would be located. We didn't find him, but it just meant the dog kept moving, which is what I call tracking. And then all of a sudden the pendulum it didn't go dead. It didn't seem to like the location. And the reason I say that is sometimes the pendulum can act weirdly, oddly, a different energy. And so I stopped the search and said, go home and let's just hope for the best that somebody picked him up and took him to SPCA or one of the rescue groups or one of the county rescue groups because it didn't feel like he was outside anymore. And I had to pinpoint with the dowsing, which is the same thing as medical. You can do the same medical thing with a horse or a dog and humans, and you douse out where the illness is. Well, there's also a thing called a tool, which is deviceless body dowsing. I'm going off the focus, but you can use several tools for several different things. So on this particular one, I used my own personal body. I hate to say this empath. I'm not really fond of that word, But if I felt pain in my body, I said, okay, it's my left leg that I feel pain. I feel like if I'm talking to the dog or next to the dog, I shouldn't say talking to the dog, looking at the dog, I felt like it was a back leg, not the front leg of the left leg of the dog, and it was in pain from being hurt. They did find some blood, so that took them to a certain path, but then it ended. So, somebody could have picked him up and, like I said, take him to SPCA or one of the other groups. Now, or the bad news is someone kidnapped him, took him to their vet, and they're never going to report the dog missing. The dog is chipped. On this particular one, also, it could be coyotes, a group of coyotes grabbed the dog and ran. But I believe you would have seen a lot more blood. What's your take? Because normally, if an animal or a human is stabbed or cut or whatever, wouldn't the blood trail continue?
Oh, absolutely, it will.
Yeah, so it disappeared. That seems weird to me.
Oh, explain the different methods used in dowsing. There are several different methods used in the dowsing. Some dowsers use a visual technique where they can scan the area with their eyes and look for signs of energy. And others use a tactical method where they touch objects and sense energy emanating from them, but still others use a mental technique where they focus their thoughts on the object they are seeking. Now, we have a question. The question is, when using a pendulum, is there any particular fingers you hold in, or just whatever is comfortable for you to hold in personally?
Personally, I use the thumb and the pointer finger. And the big problem what people are doing when they use a pendulum is they're letting the string become too long. So think of the bottom of the pendulum part itself, the item, the crystal, the wood, whatever you want to use. That piece is already there, but then other people hold it where the chain is like 6 inches, 8 inches long. It's That's ridiculous. When you want to answer, you want your pendulum to be about 1 to 2. I shouldn't say 1, 2 inches long. That's about it. And you're going to get a quicker answer. You're going to get a more responsive and sensitive answer. And that's what I prefer.
And the other question from Doris. Doris wants to know, do you use a bobber? Now, what is a bobber? Because first thing comes to my mind is I'm going fishing.
Right, yeah, it's just like that. I have the bobber. I've gone out in the field with a bobber, boots on the ground, and when you go treasure hunting or water location work, the bobber it's typically there's two or three types of bobbers, and they're expensive now because the better ones are expensive. So for the first one was invented by a guy where it was a six inch handle. So think about a little tube in your hand, 6 inches long, about 1 inch wide, and then it's got a wire attached to it that has got to be about 8 to 10 inches long, and then it goes into an L shape, but it's all by itself. So you have the L rods. That's a totally different program. With this thing, they had a piece of wood or chrome um, metal, and so you got the handle, and then you have the L rod where it's coming out. But what's interesting is the reason they call it a bobber is they have an attached extra piece, and when you're asking a question, the bobber goes up and down just like the fishing bobble, I guess you call it, and there aren't problems using it, but um, so it's a little difficult to explain, but it does come out and it does have an L shape. But again, there's a spring in it also. And I would tell people look up a dowsing bobber. Let me see if I can find one and see if it's in here on the internet. But it's helpful. It's very accurate, very sensitive. Um, I think it would be great for ghost hunting. I mean, are you going to go ghost hunting? No, you go after Bigfoot, the
No,
scary stuff.
I do everything. You know,
You
anything
do?
goes
Okay, so
ooh wee in the dark, I'm there.
yeah, since this thing, the bobber is very energy oriented, I would tell you to go ahead. Do you have another computer next to you? You can pull up dowsing bobber and what it looks like or
No,
an image.
everybody type in dowsing bobber and see what go to images.
Yeah, I think that might help, but
Dowsing
it's
bobber.
right. And they'll see there's a handle and then a rod and then there's a coil, and it literally goes up and down just like a bobber for fishing. Um, the coil, I believe, is just like the AC DC electrical stuff. So that's why I think it's so sensitive. Um, Now just remember, it's one pendulum, not one pendulum, one dowsing rod by itself. It's an individual. It's a single rod. It's not two. Um,
Uh,
I mean, go ahead.
no, I'm just laughing at a comment. It says
What did somebody say?
sounds like a beep search will advise later. He's
Yeah, yeah.
afraid or
Somebody's got
she's
to.
afraid that what's going to pop up on the. That's why you got to put dowsing in front of it. Dowsing
Oh yeah, yeah.
bobber.
No, I get it. Yeah, no, yeah. This is what men think of. They're bored. I hope we're not boring them. So here's one. It's They're calling it a rod, but it's a straight bobber. I don't use the straight bobber. I use the Cameron orometer. So tell people to Google the Cameron orometer dowsing rod. So let's see if I do it. What happens? Cameron uh, orometer. Aura, AURA, meter, uh, and I can't spell worth a darn.
Well, neither can
Meter,
I.
let's see, Cameron Aura meter dowsing rod. All right, that one is expensive, but it's very sensitive and very much on target. All right, so what they have right now, these are funny. They have, okay, so, oh, they're $500 now. I told you they're getting
Wow.
expensive. Here,
Wow.
yeah, see, yeah, I probably sold the guy that one. He's selling it for 500. Yeah, they're not cheap anymore. This one looks like it may be one of the original ones. What they did was they took silver and they made bobbers that were silver. I think I have one, and then I have one that's like a chrome, and then I had one that was gold, but of course that disappeared. So if they want to see the image, again, it's Cameron, Cameron, aura meter. So next word, aura meter. It's this one is calling it a. They don't even use the name Cameron, but it's Orometer Pocket Dowsing Rod. But this one looks just like the Cameron Orometer, and really nice, really nice. I might have one left if somebody wants it, but I only sell it for like 200. But this one looks like the one I sold. So one of
Wow.
my other ones. Yeah, so $500. I mean, that's the only one listed for $500. But the other ones are a lot less expensive. Um, okay, so let's see what we got. Copper ones. Yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah. So the ones I'm looking at right now are wooden handles, which is perfect for perception. The coil, the brass, or either the copper, I guess, and then two little bullets on the end, just like the bobber. You can see it bobbing up and down. It might be too much when you're out doing ghost hunting or Bigfoot hunting. Um, if you have two of those, that might be a little weird on perception. Again, it's an energy going through your body. Go. What do you think? Are you looking at the pictures?
No, I was afraid to Google it at first. Once he made that comment, I'm still smiling behind my mic, and I put LOL on the comment section. But
Oh,
exploring
no
the
doubt.
different types of dowsing, there are several different types of dowsing, which we know now, which I learned a lot now. Water dowsing is used to locate water underground, water sources, which we already know. Dowsing is used to answer questions or gain insight in the future. Okay. Geomagnetic dowsing is used to locate buried objects or lost items. Now that's interesting. And I like the one about medical dowsing is used to diagnose illness. Examining the benefits
Right.
of each type of
Yeah.
dowsing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to interject that if you're in the field and you're going to work with people on the practice, you legally cannot give diagnosis nor treatment. So in America, you can be arrested if you give an opinion, just an opinion. So you have to say, I'm suspicious, but if it were me, I would do this. And you would have to have people sign a contract with you saying that you are held harmless of any kind of lawsuits based on your opinion. And you can't even give an opinion in the health field. If you called me and said, "Hey, I got a headache. What do you think?" Well, if it were me, I would buy some Tylenol. But see, you have a little bit of a liver problem because of diabetes, so you may have to go over to ibuprofen. But then people forget the fact that if you take too much ibuprofen, you can have a heart attack. So you have to be really careful on what you talk about when you're talking about healing and dowsing. Period. You have to have the contract. You don't want to get sued or go to jail. Period. My dad actually went to jail because the cop said that he said I could heal you. He never said that. I know my dad. He doesn't say that. He says I believe it could heal you, or you can try it. It might heal you. So you have to be very, very careful. Go.
Well, examining the benefits of each type of dowsing. Each type of dowsing has its own set of benefits. Well, we kind of know that now. Water dowsing can be used to find reliable water sources for drinking, garden, and other purposes. Dowsing can also help people make decisions, gain clarity, and gain insight into the future. Well, I still find that amazing. I really do. Medical dowsing can help diagnose illness and provide insights into underlying causes. Now, identifying the benefits of dowsing. Now, this is where we're going to take another 2 or 3 steps into. Dowsing can be a powerful tool for gaining knowledge, making decisions, finding solutions to problems. It can also help people access information that would otherwise be inaccessible. It can also be used to identify potential dangers and protect people from harm, which I didn't know. Finally, it can be used to uncover hidden knowledge and unlock mysteries. Ooh. Exploring the different applications of dowsing. Dowsing can be used for a variety of applications. And it goes over again water, buried objects, uncover hidden knowledge. Now, here is what I found very interesting about common misconceptions. Debunking myths about dowsing. Unfortunately, there are many myths and misconception about dowsing. Some people believe it's a form of witchcraft or black magic. Others think it's a scam or a hoax. The truth is, ladies and gentlemen, dowsing is a legitimate practice that has been used for centuries and is backed by scientific evidence. While we explore the scientific evidence for dowsing, recent studies have shown that dowsing does indeed have scientific merit. Studies have also found that dowsers can be accurately detect water that's underground, identify buried objects, answer questions with remarkable accuracy. It reminds me of that 8 ball we had when we was growing up. Remember, we used to shake the hell out of it.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
yep,
Oh yeah. Give me the good news.
right. Dowsing is an ancient practice that has many benefits. It can be used to find water, lost items, and everything. But one thing I do want to know is in another article that I read, dowsing is not for everyone. And I repeat, ladies and gentlemen, dowsing is not for everyone. Now, a Facebook user wrote, Bigfoot or Sasquatch being a physical being, how would this technique be helpful in locating or tracking? like thus is not a good ghost or anything, and it is something that is physical as you or I. So how could dowsing locate or prove the existence of Bigfoot or Sasquatch? I know for sure dowsing can locate medical problems, can locate water and precious metals, but could you please explain how it can be located Bigfoot? Because that's the only part I'm having a hard time believing. Now, with that being said, have you ever heard remote viewing? I have some people that will take a map and they will touch the map and they will tell other investigators where to go to find Sasquatch or Bigfoot. And they have a very, very high accuracy rate. I actually had some on my show. Now, when it comes to dowsing, Ginette, what's your recommendation? How would you do it? I mean, you find missing pets. So what's the difference
Yeah.
between
So,
Sasquatch?
well, certainly you could. If I was going to go after blah, blah, Sasquatch, I think I would use all my methods. I would get a grid, just like a missing person. But see, he's energy and he comes and goes and disappears supposedly. So this is what I would do. I would go for I would ask the question, and the question you ask will get the answer. I call it the equation. So let's say you're looking for Bigfoot. Where does Bigfoot normally, where does let's say we're in Seattle, Washington in a park and we're trying to find him. I would say, show me, where does Bigfoot eat regularly? Did you hear the word regularly or consistently? And then you would go to that area and then you would GPS the area and say, this is the area you need to watch, put all your trail cams. And I think that's the pattern you're going to get. Then you want to do another pattern. Where is the nest to Bigfoot? And where is the nest to his babies? And where is the nest to a female Bigfoot? And if they're all in the same area, it's the radius, then that's the area where you want to put all the trail cams. Now, I also hear, now you can correct me if I'm wrong, I get the impression they also climb trees.
Yes, they do.
Okay, so I think I would have a trail cam up looking down. And I mean, I know the drones are great, but I would always ask, what does a human being do frequently? Well, we have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now, you and I are diabetic, so supposed to have 5 little meals a day. Ooh la la. And what does the monkey do? The monkey, the Bigfoot, who's supposedly half monkey, half human, whatever it is, and they're going to eat 5 times a day because I just think that I don't know. My theory is they probably sleep more during the day, I guess. Is that true?
Well, there's a debate on that. That's absolutely true. And he says remote viewing and dowsings are different. So yes, they are. They are different. But
Right. So yeah, but
go
so
ahead.
let's say you say where's the nest? You have to say where's the nest at night or where's the nest during the day? And show me. This is critical. You have to say, show me his nest in a 40-mile radius. Where does he nest on a regular basis? Where does he nest consistently? And then you want a remote view. Like, let's say you're a person who does remote viewing, just like a missing person. Show me where the killer went, for example, to go back and look at the body. Show me where the trees, the landmarks, where did the killer park to go back and look at the body? I mean, we are very consistent and very patterned. Well, for example, I don't know about you. When I get up in the morning, we all go to the restroom. Okay, where does the Bigfoot, I hate to be crude, pee or go to the bathroom consistently first thing in the morning when he gets up? And let's say it shows you the same general area. Then you have a bathroom area, a nesting area, a drinking water area. I'm sure they eat fish. I assume they eat fish, not just deer. I mean, they're always showing deer. Do they eat fish?
Well, yes, they do. He says, well, typically a grid search as a hunter conversation
Yeah.
officer, none of that actually answered how dowsing could locate a physical being. Well, dowsing can actually locate physical beings, and I don't know if it's her psychic and medium abilities, but we're getting ready to cover how they can actually find dead bodies. Everything you
If you can
described
find a
was
dead,
remote viewing, not dowsing. Hmm.
no, you can use the dowsing to ask, show me with the grid pattern, and then get the GPS of the Bigfoot drinking his water where he goes regularly to his water hole. If he's going, so I'm not explaining the dowsing. I mean, if you're doing remote viewing, it's very similar, but you have a bobber in your hand and you're saying, show me with the grid system where Bigfoot is drinking. And if Bigfoot goes to the same spot all the time, then that's the area I would circle. And then I'd say, show me where his nest is with the grid system using the pendulum. And then I would do the same thing. Where's his favorite feeding spot? I mean, I would assume, Grizzly, you're a deer hunter, aren't you?
I used to be, yes.
Okay, so do you go to your favorite hunting spot where you think most of the deer will show up so that you can shoot them and eat them?
Usually we scout first, before season. But yes, I have my regular spots when I was younger, absolutely. But we
Okay, so you'd
knew at
use
the
the same
time
thing. Uh-huh.
that deer would come through there because we would see the tracks. But his
Right.
question
So
is
okay.
is
Yeah.
dowsing not remote viewing? I brought up the remote
No, I'm
viewing.
saying yeah, no, I'm fine with that, but I'm just saying I would use the pendulum to, and I would take a pen, PEN in my left hand, and I would say, show me on a grid pattern where they're going to go and eat, drink, pee, poop, nest. I mean, that's what we do, right? I mean, they're not going to go to work. All they do for going to work is finding food for the next forage situation. And where do they store their deer? I mean, according to the stuff I've seen on TV, they normally show the bones, but it looks like to me, I mean, not my experience, but the shows that I've seen, I guess the Travel Channel has one where they're going after Bigfoot and they found like 3 or 4 different dead deer bones, like almost the whole deer right there in one area. So that means he's going back to that area and dumping the deer and eating there because he feels safe. So I would use the pendulum to do the remote dowsing. If you're not a dowser, you have to watch a dowser work with the grid pattern, and there's like 5 different types. You can use the circle grid pattern. You can use a square grid pattern, just like on a map. Um, there was a company that every year I buy their new, I think it was called Atlas for new United States maps, and it sometimes it's typically in a grid pattern, and they normally put the grids on, and other times they don't. Um, I've had maps from Richmond, Virginia, where I am, and it's a grid pattern, and I say, should I go to this grid, this grid, this grid? And then I take the same grid, make it smaller, and break it down to small until I get the exact point, and then I go on the computer and GPS it, like I just did with the dog. Now, unfortunately, they haven't found any more blood for this particular case on the dog, but what if you find blood from what you think is a Bigfoot? Because what? They're 6 to 10 feet tall? I don't know. They're all different sizes.
Well,
Too many variables.
ladies and gentlemen, let me clear the air. Jeanette has no knowledge, no experience in anything Bigfoot, Sasquatch, dog related, cryptid related at all. So that's where I come into play. She's a
Yeah.
psychic medium, dowser. She works with local law enforcement to find, unfortunately, missing persons, dead bodies, cold cases. Well, I mean, it's the truth. You do.
Yeah. I've never gone boots on the ground looking for a Bigfoot. You know why? Because they're huge. I mean, they're just like a bear coming after you or a boar, BOAR, coming after you. I mean, can you imagine being in Louisiana and you're going boar hunting? You douse out the areas, and out comes this boar pig running at you. How fast do they run? 30 miles an hour at you? Oh my God, they could bite you. Like you could turn around and that big pig is right there. What do they weigh? 300 to 800 pounds? Scary. I mean, I'm going to let you go first. You know that old cliche about ghosties? Don't go down in that basement. Yeah, I'm not going in the basement, and I'm not going in the woods to hunt Bigfoot. I'll send you out, give you the GPS using dowsing. If you want me to combine remote viewing, so be it. I can pull in another person I know that does remote viewing. You're the hunter, Grizzly. You go.
Well,
You go
and another
first.
thing, another thing is too that you're probably not aware of is that we suspect that Sasquatch and the other remnants of the family can also see infrared. So that's why the cameras, they can see the trail cameras and they can pick those up. And also they can drain the batteries too. So there's something going on with that as well.
That's the energy. There's something to do with energy. I mean, I was trying to find the missing dog today, and all sorts of reactions were, oh, the computer didn't work. And then I walked away for about 5 minutes and I came back and the computer started working. This happens to me frequently, but people always call at the last minute. Oh, I have a missing person. Oh, I have a missing dog. And then I have to be brave enough to tell them whether or not the dog is dead or the person is dead, and then move forward where the person or the dog is not moving anymore. This is the final resting spot. A final resting spot is the same thing as Bigfoot going and eating. It's his final spot to eat, his final spot to go to sleep and feel safe. I'm very convinced about it. Have I ever had anybody try the application? A guy called me and said, if you pinpoint where Bigfoot is and all that, I'll give you 10 grand. Well, he didn't, he kept talking to me for 6 months online, but then he didn't come forward. Um, you know, you got to try it. You can't knock it till you try it. I mean, what if it did work? Supposedly, now you tell me, Grizzly, they're coming from, I guess, a UFO ship, or they're planted here from previous years. And you'd have to probably pinpoint where a UFO ship is coming and going also. I don't know that that would be a good idea, but I mean, while you're dowsing, why not? Why not pinpoint where a UFO ship might go regularly or might land regularly to drop things off and on? I mean,
Well,
people use another word, portal. Where's the portal?
the thing though is that people, claim to see UFOs either before or after Bigfoot or Sasquatch encounter. So orbs before or after seeing a Bigfoot or an encounter. So we really don't know that aspect of it, and that's when I had Ron Moorhead on my show, which is
Hmm.
a very famous person, and he said that if we talked about this stuff, quantum physics and other dimensions, he would laugh at you 50 years ago. But he's like, Grizzly, there's more to it now than I ever thought of. And we have to think outside the box and look over the box. So we're trying to figure things out. Everybody has their own beliefs, everybody has their own encounters. Everybody asks me all the time, Grizzly, is this photograph or video real? Well, number one, I wasn't there. Number two, I didn't take it. Now, the Facebook user says that's not dowsing or remote viewing, that's by pattern. Animals will travel the same paths for years and years and years. Any animal has a place where it feels safe to sleep or eat. My question is, how does feeding a Sasquatch or just where a deer died naturally and natural predators did do their thing? Well, I think we have a roadblock here. So, what she's trying to explain to you, and the best way I can explain to you is what Ron Moorhead explained to me. I'm not a dowser. I'm not a psychic. I'm not a medium. I'm not a remote viewer, which I know many remote viewers that are very accurate finding Bigfoot and relaying that information to people with boots on the ground. Is Ron Moorhead stated, if you really want to see where you should go and you don't know anything about nothing, you don't have any special talents. He says the first thing you do is get online and find a website that shows all the Bigfoot sightings in America and lay that out on top of a map of America. So we're talking about transparency paper, plastic.
Right.
Now,
It's a grid system. It's a grid system.
right. Then on top of
Yeah. It's
that,
not. Yeah.
get the UFO reports that people report seeing UFOs, print that out, and lay it on top of the map again. Then after that, take the way lines, the cave systems, and keep combining all that. And now you're going to have a pattern where you're going to see reports, the underground cave systems, the ley lines, and so forth. And that will give you a good idea where to go. Now, you know, I'm not a psychic or a medium or a dowser, but I've absolutely believe 100% in what Jeanette's saying because she has a very high track history with cases. I mean, the local law enforcement uses her in the FBI. I mean, she's not going to send them on a wild goose chase to find a missing person or a dead body. You know, unfortunately, you know, she recovers them sometimes when she's asked to. Now, there is a thing when it comes to people like her in law enforcement that they usually don't mingle. I mean, can you see me up on stand? Well, Ginette, she told me to get off Highway 44 and walk 150 feet west. Turn around, take 20 feet north, and look on to the south, and the body will be laying right there, or the body will be buried. So, you know, I mean, how can I testify to that? So, a lot of times, law enforcement or any accredited department, agency, government agency, you know, I mean, we use psychics and everything back then for remote viewing. They did tests on them, you know, back in the 60s and 70s and trying to spy on Russia, and Russia did the same thing on us and all that. And, you know, it's very hard for me to explain because she doesn't know anything about the paranormal stuff. And that's where I come into play. She
Well, you
tries.
don't mean you mean
Well, I meant
paranormal with.
Bigfoot,
Okay.
cryptids,
Yeah.
monsters,
Well,
stuff like
yeah,
that's what
but
I'm
here,
referring to.
yeah, so I'm going to interject that here's the problem. If he doesn't understand the grid pattern that I would be using, then, and that's understandable. If he isn't familiar with the dowsing that we use, I mean, my father's very famous for finding underground tunnels. For example, here's an example. We were working for a foreign country. I mean, this
Well,
is a true story.
let me interrupt you real quick, okay? Because he came
Sure,
back
sure.
and he says, I do too. And he also said she's good. Now, sometimes people, and I was a skeptic. Ginette, you knew I was. And I went on a mission and I took every psychic that I could have got a hold of, remember? And medium,
Yep.
and I interviewed them live. I'm like, okay, let's find the crooked and evil people. My remote viewer has 30-year track record. That's impressive. All right, take it away, Jeanette.
So here's an example of finding Bigfoot. So let's say we were trying to find Bigfoot. Just I'm going to tell you a human story. So years ago, what God, I don't know, 8 years ago, my father was flown to a foreign country along with a colonel friend of his who had an intel background, who was cleared. My father was cleared. You can say vetted, cleared, whatever, but you have to have a clearance. So they flew over to this foreign country and they were asked to find underground tunnels to go from country A to country B. And I actually got lucky and found the newspaper articles, which we did ask for our name not to go in the newspaper because of the country conflicts, the two countries. All right, yes, we're talking about an Arab country. And no, you don't want your name in the newspaper over there. I mean, I've been on Al Jazeera TV for my dream work, but that's a totally different ball game. So that just gives you an example. That's safe. But when it comes to finding underground tunnels, saying the enemy is coming over here, just like Vietnam, and they're bringing all sorts of things through the tunnels, we want to know where, when, whether it's a bomb, whether it's a refrigerator, whether it's furniture, whether it's soldiers. Again, in Vietnam, they had 300 guys in a tunnel. 300. I mean, that's a huge tunnel, and it's a huge tunnel system. So my dad was successful on finding the tunnels. They took pictures. They went down there and they dug. The foreign country we worked for, they dug, and guess what? They found tunnels. The tunnels were so big. When they were coming, I guess they made noise, and the other country, the Arab country, was running off to protect themselves. They dropped a refrigerator. So they were walking, standing up, carrying a refrigerator. They had electrical wires going down so they could pick a Coke out of the fridge. That's pretty easy. Now, if you're pinpointing that, you can do the same thing with Bigfoot. I don't see the difference. But here's the next story. So they found all these things. That was in the newspaper. I have the newspaper article. But then they called and said, okay, we're also looking for, which I don't think I've told you this story. They were looking for one of their soldiers, and he had been kidnapped. And I think two had been kidnapped, but they asked me to find one. And they said, we really don't know what country he's in. We don't know where he is. And I was asked to douse and pinpoint where he was located. And I said, okay, so let's go see where he sleeps. So in other words, even if he's going to be moved around, because when you're a foreign country and you kidnap a soldier from another country, you're going to have a sleeping spot, a watering hole, an eating hole. Apparently he was a smoker. Where is he smoking? All these little things are going to go on your wish list. And I said, okay, I got a spot. And at the time I didn't have GPS, but I told him, I pulled up maps and I said, it looks like he's right here. And I said, I counted how many feet from the gate. I said, so is he 20 feet from the gate, 50 feet from the gate? And so let's say I said 60 feet from the gate, mark a spot. I said, okay, how many buildings over is he? He's 3 buildings over and 60 feet. All right, how far is he from the bathroom? 5 feet. How far is he from the front door? 7 feet. How far is there a window in the room? There's 2 windows in the room. Now, you know we have all these fantastic satellite dishes up in the air, but if you're underground, you can't see them. So I had to pinpoint exactly where he was located, and this foreign country took Blackhawks in where I said he would be. They trusted me that much. And the general actually said to me, Ginette, are you sure? I said, I got to tell you, this feels really, really good. I feel like I'm on the money. And they're talking about spending a lot of money with Blackhawks. 4 Blackhawks went in to get their boy, all right? And they got there, and when they got there, there was a cigarette in the ashtray. And they took the cigarette home. He was not there. They took the cigarette home, and it was his DNA on the cigarette.
Wow.
Not bad, not bad. So you know what? I was right, but then they eventually did some more work and found out there were tunnels under the buildings. Well, they must have missed this guy by minutes because they went out at 4 in the morning. All right, you know, whatever the European 4 in the morning time frame was. And when I say here's this smoking cigarette, and they call me back and tell me, and I said, darn it. I mean, they told me they were going at 4 a.m. with 4 Blackhawks. I mean, I'm not going to spend your time, spin your wheels to go look for something unless I feel really good about it. Same thing with the missing dog. It was a trophy dog, but that's not the point. The problem with dogs right now is people are stealing them left and right, and they're selling them. The druggies are grabbing them and running, whether they hurt them or not. Regarding Bigfoot, I could almost promise you're going to be able to get pictures of that Bigfoot. You're going to say, okay, this is where he's doing the same exact thing. I don't think it's any different. Like the guy that the general called me about, his bed was right there. His burning cigarette was right there. And granted, Bigfoot can move quickly and his family. I hear he stinks. So you're going to get that odor. You're going to go in there and say, oh my God, we're minutes away. But if you had those trail cams that can do, what do you call it?
The motion.
Uh, I guess motion detector or whatever, you could do they have trail cams where I guess they turn on if somebody's coming by, right?
Yeah, it's
So,
motion, but the problem is they use infrared and they can see the spectrum of infrared. Now I've got the new ones that I'm going to test out that is infrared free that picks up and detects up to 90 feet of anything that moves. So hopefully it
so
works.
so here's the question. If I said Bigfoot is at this GPS and he's eating here, sleeping here, and so forth, you would know what direction he's going to go in. So let's say we dowsed out that he's going to go to a northeast direction to go back to his home, his safe zone, to go back to bed or to get out of harm's way. I mean, he's not an idiot. Or to go get water, which is still a safe zone. And I think that could work because then you put the trail cams going down the path of where he would go, which would be still, although his safe zone, you'd still get click, 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 because he would be motion detected all the way down the path. That's what bothered me when I watched the TV shows, that I don't see them using enough trail cams. Oh, I've got 5 trail cams.
Well, the
Well, if
problem
you,
is that each
hmm
time it takes a picture, it's blurry. So that's the problem. Somehow they interact with the cameras to cause disruption
hmm
in the camera. So that's the issue.
Well, that just sounds like to me you guys need an investor to come in who really wants to pay for Bigfoot to be finally caught in pictures to get a really good picture of him. I mean, and the other problem is most Bigfoots are dark skinned and then they've got shadows of trees, so it's really hard to see. So, do the trail cams have lights on them also? So like click click click, you can
Well,
see like a
and they actually can see the infrared, and that's what we're talking about. That picks up the motion and takes the photograph. The Facebook
okay.
user, it's been written that there's a hairy man that they were freaked out. Yeah, I can imagine that. And foot is multi-dimensional, and that's what Ron and I were discussing on my show. I think it does have some
Mhm.
merit to that. There's so many questions that we actually have anymore when it comes to Sasquatch or Bigfoot or however you want to talk about it. But
Mhm.
Jeanette, you know what?
What?
You're, yeah, there we go. You're supposed to say what?
Wh-
Now
What?
we're going to shift gears a little
This
bit.
is not a test. This is your emergency
We're
broadcast
shifting
system
gears, ladies
announcing
and
the
gentlemen.
commencement of the annual purge
Okay.
sanctioned by the U.S. government. Weapons of Class 4 and lower have been authorized for use during the purge. All other weapons are restricted. Government officials of ranking 10 have been granted immunity from the purge and shall not be harmed. Commencing at the siren, any and all crime, including murder, will be legal for 12 continuous hours. Police, fire, and emergency medical services will be unavailable until tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. when the purge concludes. Blessed be our new founding fathers and America, a nation reborn. May God be with you all.
Energy on the truck, boy.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for segment 2. There's a body buried here somewhere, while 5 crime scene investigators wearing the T-back suits, the purple latex gloves, they pace through a Tennessee woodland in a slow wave, searching for areas of sunken ground and other clues that might indicate a gravesite. The chill, the morning air is scented with long leaves,
This is not a test.
pine
This is
needles,
your emergency
and a hint of
broadcast system.
human decay. Now, this article that we're referring to is actually written to find and been published in partnership with Mother Jones. And you can sign up for their newsletter and follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. The agents marked 3 suspicious depressions in the dirt with red flags and discussed their options for investigating further. Now, one of the students asked about dowsing rods, and one of the instructors turned around and said, "Do you want to use some?" He was like, Bass is an instructor at the National Forensic Academy in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And that's where law enforcement officers come to learn how to use science to solve crimes. Well, that's at least in theory. I use them on everything, he says. There are no official dowsing rods at hand, but that doesn't matter. You can use the flags, he says. He says, look, watch this. Bend them like this, just like you would a coat hanger. And Fred Ponce, a private detective from Miami, Florida, and this is wild, with a dark mustache and a beard, gets right to work. He tears off the red plastic rectangles off 2 stakes and spaces them in his hands to about 12 inches of straight steel. Then bends the remaining metal into his handles. Holding the stakes like 6-shooters, he walks over to one of the suspected grave sites. The stakes actually cross. Now, how does he actually do it? He does it again. They cross. And again, they cross. And he says, I'm not kidding, Ponce says, marveling that his do-it-yourself grave finder seems to be working. A Caucasian man. Now, can you imagine being at this school trying to study how to locate missing bodies, and people donate their bodies to science, right? And they do it all the time. But turn around and have your instructor just take the red flags, the orange flags out of the ground. I mean, isn't that crazy? Now, have you ever tried that before? Well, no, not you, Ginette. I mean, you got special tools for yours. See, that's a redneck invention for me. That's something that I would probably do, you know? I'm just being honest.
That's because, yeah, that's because you're from Kentucky.
Well, Kentucky or not, that's probably what I would do. So as he's doing this, you know, he walks back over and it crosses again. Now, he works to exonerate wrongfully convicted prisoners. And that's very interesting. It really is. Wrongfully convicted prisoners.
That's a
So
big job.
it is. But that doesn't matter. You can use flags, you can use anything. Aprad Vass is a Caucasian man wearing glasses and a white hazmat suit, stands in the woods in front of an unmarked grave, you know, and a yellow string in a rectangular shape. And he's an instructor, once again, for the National Forensic Academy in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and stands before a burial site in the woods. Now, all the students attending this school is a 10-week training program held 3 times a year to learn to locate, map, and excavate grave sites. Vass is a 62-year-old wearing a blue CSI Death Valley cap, is teaching his students witching, aka diving or dowsing. It's centuries old practice, like we said earlier. Straight line holding 2 bent pieces of metal and sometimes a Y-shaped twig. He actually did that in front of the students until they signaled the presence of whatever is being sought after underground. Well, yeah, we already know about water witches dowsing for groundwater. We talk about that all the time. Others use divining rods for seeking precious metals and gems. Oil. I cannot say oil like everybody else does. Or gold. Or in this case, human remains. Dowsing for the dead is not exactly endorsed by scientists or forensics experts, but it is a highlight for some students attending the National Forensic Academy. Don't forget, a 10-week training program sponsored by the University of Tennessee. And this has been 20 years ago they started. And they have actually been involved in more than 1,200 crime scenes investigators from agencies in 49 U.S. states and 5 foreign countries, and have attended the program, which currently costs students $12,000 each. Now, this is what the Washington Post once nicknamed the academy: the Harvard of hellish violence. And the students now wear the slogan on their t-shirts as they analyze bloodstain patterns, fingerprint corpse, which depends on how to do that when it comes to what part of decay is, or if the body's been in water. They also excavate skeletons from gravesite and collect bugs from decaying bodies sprawled all over the ground at a wooded site, especially outside of town. Near graduation, the instructors blow up a car for a real life lesson on fire scenarios and explosives. That's what I'm talking about. Bang! A group of
Little
trees
kid.
with gray bark and without leaves standing in the woods. In 2016, the Academy established a 2-acre field training site in the Cumberland Forest in Morgan County, Tennessee. Dozens, now listen to this, dozens of donated bodies are buried for the sole purpose of teaching law enforcement agents how to investigate crime scenes. In May of 2021, he says that he spent a week there at the academy where instructors, administrators, and students describe Vass as a genius. Some of the students go on to using witching techniques in their own investigations, dowsing. He says he is convinced that his methods actually work, but scholarly research don't back him up. Outside experts that he spoke with, we're talking about professional forensic anthropologists and lawyers, as well as law enforcement officers involved with police training reforms. They are alarmed that a leading training program is teaching pseudo of witching that are also concerned about the repercussions for the criminal justice at a time where many mainstream forensic techniques have proved to be unreliable, including blood spatter patterns, bite marks comparisons, and faulty interrogation techniques. And in the last 2 decades, hundreds of cases built on these methods have been overturned by DNA evidence. In 2009, a report by the National Academy of Science concluded that nuclear DNA analysis is the only forensic technique that can support claims in court that evidence matches a specific individual or source. So, while dowsing for the dead may seem particularly wacky, it just the most extreme example of a problem afflicting the forensic practice that many Americans have seen touted on television for years. And that's Randy Shrewsbury says, which he is a retired police officer who founded the nonprofit Institute for Criminal Justice Training Reform. Law enforcement regularly accepts flaws of these practices. But despite of life-altering impacts that can occur when they are wrong, in particular, some experts are distressed that a trainee recently got witching results admitted as evidence in a Georgia murder trial. Now, this could set a legal precedent and allow witching based on evidence to be used in other cases. And Chris, fabricated, that's his name, Fabricant, there we go, a lead attorney for the Innocent Project, which works to exonerate wrongfully convicted prisoners. The search for the truth has never advanced, though. It's just junk science. The Academy defended the teaching, with the witching say it's only one of the techniques that's shown its students that the program relies on its instructors to relay the extensive knowledge of Jason Jones, a forensic training specialist with the Academy, which actually wrote in an email adding that witching doesn't create false evidence, which I found very interesting. Either you find the remains or you don't. You're not trying to alter anything, he says. He says dowsing is based on scientific principles. In fact, that it was admitted in court as credibility and proof of the techniques. And it is cutting edge scientists have always faced skepticism over. And I was one of them. Even in persecution, he says. This is a very great example. Remember what the church did to him when he said Earth was not the center of the universe? He was deemed a lunatic. Gosh, we learned that back in school. Forensics, the use of science in crime investigations, dates back to 44 BC, when a Roman physician performed one of the world's first recorded autopsies on Julius Caesar, which I didn't know about, after he'd been stabbed to death. Significant advancements in the field came out the way of the turn of the 19th century, with development of fingerprint analysis, with the principle formulated by criminologist Edmond Locard, the Sherlock Holmes of France, stating that every contract leaves a trace. Every contact, not contract, contact. Examples of trace evidence includes, which we all know, hairs, fibers, fabric, minerals, skeletal remains. But law enforcement agents have long claimed that they can interpret this kind of evidence along with impressions from blood spatter, shoe prints, and tire tracks to be used and find and convict suspects. But DNA testing since the late 1990s has overturned hundreds of convictions based on faulty forensics. In 2009, a report by the National Academy of Sciences concluded that nuclear DNA analysis is the only forensic technique that can support claims evidence matches a specific individual or source in court. While a student is wearing a white hazmat suit puts on bright blue rubber gloves, students attending the Harvard of hellish violence don rubber gloves and tie-back suits and booties in preparation for their field training in the school's burial site. They're in for a 2 days exercise. Students are instructed to find a gravesite and excavate the human remains along with any other clues that they could find. Now, his early work focused on the smell of death, the volatile organic compounds emitted by decomposing human remains. Among his inventions was an electric device meant to help detect those compounds better than a cadaver dog. Now that's wild. Nicknamed Labrador. It looks like Labrador, but it's Labrador. Lightweight analyzer for buried remains and decomposition bodies. Order recognition is never launched commercially. He says it's also designed on a fly on a leash, capitalizing on the insect's ability to find a corpse within minutes of a death. He describes how he outfitted the bugs with miniaturized tracking devices. Now we're getting high tech now. It would have worked out great, he says, but birds eat flies, so I lost most of my trackers. Viles was working as a researcher at the Federal Lab in 2011 when he testified as an expert in the murder case, now listen to this, of Casey Anthony. Does that sound familiar? She was charged with killing the 3-year-old daughter, Kaylee. The prosecutor used Bass to try to prove that the toddler's dead body found in a woodland behind her parents' home had been placed in the trunk of Anthony's Pontiac Sunfire. Parts of the human skeleton lie on the plastic suit on the ground. As a student nearby sorts through the bones. Bones recovered from the gravesite are carefully laid out on the suit. Once they have a full skeleton assembled, the student knows they recovered every last toe, finger, and vertebrae. Bass claimed that an air sample from the trunk revealed high levels of compounds consistent with human decomposing based on his research. I didn't know about that. That's very interesting. An analytical chemist from Florida International University testified that Vass' testimony was not backed up by scientific evidence, and that many of the compounds that Vass identified could not have been emitted by food wrappers and other trash removed from Anthony's trunk, and he was acquitted in part because of doubts about the air sample for the car. Now, legal experts said at the time, the trial destroyed his career and believes it paved the way for the employer, Oak Ridge National Laboratory, to fire him. A lab spokesman actually confirmed Vass's employment ended in September 2012, but declined further. Any more comments? Since then, he says his main sources of employment have been consulting on missing person cases and a part-time teaching at the Forensic Academy. Our skull lies in a pile of autumn leaves with a reddish orange plastic autopsy bag and a concrete block nearby. Skulls and bones are scattered around the forest floor and buried more than 3 feet on the ground. When students try to rebury their test subjects at the end of the 2-day exercise, they sometimes leave notes for the next class. Smart. The National Forensic Academy's headquarters is a rectangular concrete building sandwiched between Applebee's and a Dairy Queen on the Oak Ridge, Tennessee Turnpike. That's very interesting. Classroom instruction on forensic anthropology begins at 8 a.m. with 26 CSI sitting at long tables. Now, each of the agents has a laptop computer and a name plaque card, the logos, and their agency standard issue black and gray polo shirts. This also includes the Texas Rangers, the U.S. Army, Air Force, as well as private investigation companies, county sheriff's offices from around the country. The lectures are held by teachers, cover everything bone identifications, human decompositions, decomposing, yeah. But if you're not going to believe it, he says, you'll have the opportunity to do it for yourself. I mean, can you imagine that? Taking a class for 10 weeks? So
You're learning dowsing. You're learning the smell. Now, most of the time people can't smell, but I have synesthesia and I can smell dead bodies right through the phone. That's one of the ways I also that's how I did it with the Kaylee Anthony case. One of the first people that ever taught me, which I did not know, it was called synesthesia, was the chief of police for forensics for DC. I had friends that were in the DC Police Department and said, "Hey, we want you to meet this guy." And he said, "Ginette, listen to your head and see if you can smell a smell." He said he was jogging one day and he went in an area.
Uh-oh, what happened? Ginette, are you still there? Well,
He was the chief of police of forensics from DC was jogging and he said he swore he smelled a dead body. So he got on the phone. He stopped, from jogging, and he called the cops and said, "Hey, get somebody down here. Get the dogs down here. There's a dead body down here." Every time he went jogging, every time he was driving, and he had a funny smell in his head, he said, "There's a body there." And every time he was right on the money. Not 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, which is called deviceless body dowsing. So I knew about University of Tennessee. I believe it's Knoxville. They are doing some other projects, the University of Tennessee, where what they're doing is they're doing CAT scans on people like me that have this weird psychic ability, or should I say the brain is turned on, where only 4% of the world has this skill. Now, lots of people have the dowsing skill. Lots of people can learn the dowsing. But the problem is the question to get the right answer. So if you're hunting for Bigfoot, and I've just developed the questions, just like missing persons, since I've done it so often, so accurately, I just tell people, use my method, see if it works for you. If it doesn't, create your own protocol. And the University of Tennessee, I did know about them with the Kaylee Anthony case because I was on the other end of the stick with the Anthony case. And I guess at this point is you just have to try it. I mean, what are you going to do? If you fail, you fail. If you don't, you don't. But with Bigfoot, so we're talking about dowsing and all the different ways. What if, I didn't even think about this. What if you said, I want to douse for a dead body of a Bigfoot, or a dead body, or several dead bodies of Bigfoot? I mean, where are they buried? I mean, if they're not dimensional, if they're not, and they're here and they die, where do they go? They have to be buried somewhere, right?
Well, yeah,
I mean,
that's
uh,
what they say, that
I
they
just don't know
bury
that
their
it.
own.
Yeah, but I mean, they may not even bury them. I mean, we really don't know. We have theories. I mean, did any of your friends in the Bigfoot field say, "Oh, by the way, Bigfoot buries his bodies"? Well, if he does, then you have a bunch of graves in the same area. I mean, they probably go by sniff or smell, uh, audible. I don't know, combination of things. But I never thought about that. When you go out next time, call me and I'll see if I can pinpoint where their graves, as I mentioned, the nest and so forth. Um, yeah, the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, um, does have the body farm, and they're the ones who invented the body farm. And then they started getting into dowsing, and then they applied. The guy, I was going to contact him myself, the guy for the body farm, and ask if I could teach a dowsing class there, because there are other odd movements from the pendulum that you have to pay attention to. And when you said, "Oh, you can do healing or danger or find out different things while you're standing there," I'm just going to throw in there a sidebar. My father was out dowsing one time with a friend, and every time they dowsed, the pendulum would fly about 10 feet away from where they were standing. And then they would go pick it up and go back to the same spot and keep dowsing, and it would fly out of their hand 10 feet away. And they said, "Well, something's going on here, so we ought to do a 360, see what's going on in our area." So they walked a few feet away, looked back, and there were two rattlers right there.
Oh,
So
wow.
so what does that mean? They didn't pay attention to the movement, or I don't want to call it the craziness of the pendulum, but that's what was happening. And again, you can have yes, no, maybe, and so forth, but you could also have danger. You can see that the pendulum will also go in an eight. It looks like an eight, either horizontally or vertically, and that means basically wait, wait, wait. I mean, my dad did all those programs, and he actually copywrote it. So I've got some of the paperwork to go through. I mean, I have lots of paperwork to go through since he passed last year, but a lot of people are not paying attention to these extra perimeters and protocols that are offered to you, because, I mean, for God's sake, we didn't do it. God did it, and he just gave it to us as the messenger. So it's all good. So the guy in Tennessee, it was two doctors that both came forward and used dowsing for the body farm. Ta-da!
That's really amazing, it really is. Now, when you work with other agencies, whether it's local or government agencies, how do you locate the bodies? Do you actually go out, or do you do it remotely with a map, or do you, I mean, what's your technique?
I don't know how to fix that. So, let me see if I can put the ringer on silent. All right. So, if I was working with the cops, they either come to my home, they've actually picked.
And we lost her again, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, Ginette, Matisha, Lucas. That's strange. Let's see if she clicks back in. But, ladies and gentlemen, law enforcement will not admit they work with people that have abilities or gifts. Uh, Most of the time, it's a taboo with the media involved. So usually they're announced as guests, or I can't think of the term. I heard them before. Special guest, uh, not an investigator, somebody that has secondhand knowledge, like another detective, another set of eyes. I don't know. My mind went blank just since Jeanette's not here. She would know. But a lot of times they don't give credit to what they do or how they do. Usually it's behind the scenes and kept very, very quiet. So that's the interesting part. Now, you've heard people out there before.
Well, it was me. That was all me. I did that. I found the body. I solved the crime.
Well, usually it doesn't work that way. Usually they don't get to say all that information. And usually, if they do work with certain agencies, there's paperwork they have to fill out so they don't disclose anything because the case is open. And if they do go to trial and find a suspect, they can't have information leak out, especially if they are talented. So it's very hard to work with people because the defense attorney would eat you alive. The head prosecutor would look at you probably funny. You used a what? You used who? And she does what? Are you serious? Now, how am I going to turn that info over to the defense attorney as evidence? Oh, it's not going to work. So that's why sometimes when psychics and mediums are used, whether they're boots on the ground or they're remote viewing using a map or whatever senses they do use, which I don't understand sometimes, that's why they use cadaver dogs. So that way, when they are right and they do find a body, it's not, lo and behold, it's Ginette Matisha Lucas that recovered the body that was missing for 9 months, found in a shallow grave along the Ohio River. It's the dog recovered, the dog, the canine, the cadaver dog. So you got to keep an open mind when that happens. You always don't know the truth when things you see on the news. Now, one of the things we are going to do is I'm going to go to one of the big cases in Idaho that everybody's talking about Monday. And Jeanette and I are going to discuss those topics. And better yet, I'm in their group conversation. I'm going to drop a link inside that group conversation and let up to 9 people join us and have them put their 2 cents in to see what's going on and their thoughts and views on the case that's actually unfolding in front of our eyes. So, like I said, we're going to do things differently. It's going to be very interesting. You never know what we're going to do. We're just starting out. You know, email us. Let us know what you want us to do.
This is not a test.
Because that's what we're here for. We're here to answer questions. We're here to help you. But we also want answers to stuff going on in today's media.
System announcing the commencement of the annual purge.
We also want
by the U.S. government.
the truth.
Weapons of class 4 and lower.
We want to learn about information.
All other weapons are restricted.
We really do.
Government officials of ranking 10 have been granted immunity from the purge and shall not be harmed. Commencing at the siren, any and all crime, including murder, will be legal for 12 continuous hours. Police, fire, and emergency medical services will be unavailable until tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. when the purge concludes. Blessed be our new founding fathers and America, a nation reborn. May God be with you all.
Energy on the truck, boy.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Grizzly from Northern Kentucky, coast to coast, around the world. Our email, you can reach us at any time, is grizzlytruecrimes@gmail. There's Ginette. She finally made it back. Oh, she's got a picture.
Oh my God, what happened?
I have no idea, but I was telling them about what we're going to do Monday, about that group chat, talk about the Idaho cases.
This is not a test. This
Okay,
is
great.
emergency broadcast.
All right, so thanks everybody, and have a nice weekend.
Absolutely. Don't forget to email us anytime at grizzlytruecrimes@gmail.com. And if you want to be on our show, email us as well as grizzly@truecrimes@gmail.com. We'll see what you have. We'll go from there and see what we can put together. It'll be very interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of night where we all must say goodbye. Until next time. Our shows are Monday and Friday at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, good night, everybody.